Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stocks to Buy Live, where we're going to be discussing not only my portfolio, the biggest trades that I want to set up for this year is I am eyeballing some things that absolutely fascinate me, but I want to roll back and talk about what fascinates other investors first and foremost, because there's a lot going on in a variety of different stock portfolios, from Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, to even Meet Kevin. I want to discuss because I kind of under-discussed the insanity of this guy running his portfolio and then completely just dumping it and just canceling his ETF, which is just fascinating, and so much more in between. But firstly, what is with the snow? Oh my God, guys. I don't know if you live in the GTA or Toronto where I live. You can see the little dot. I'm not going to zoom in too much to disclose my location, but nonetheless, it's wild out here, man. I think we've seen more snow. Like some lady up where my mom lives up north said this is more snow than she's seen in 40 years of living there. Like, I mean, I remember being a kid and getting some pretty wild snowstorms. But to put this in perspective, like this was my father at his place up north from like a few days ago, right? Like this isn't even relevant. We just had a wicked snowstorm on top of this snow. I've been trying to out and walk around in the city in it, and it's just like, this is the sidewalks in the city. It's like, God damn, it's crazy out there. So hopefully you guys are staying warm. You're, keeping tucked in. A lot of us in our chat group have been sharing photos. You want to join the chat group, by all means, go to KyleLivingston.com. Link is always in the description below. But people have been sharing photos of just the snow they're experiencing, across Ontario. It's kind of surreal to say the least. And I'm sure we're going to see more in the news about it nonetheless. But kind of pivoting here, let's get into what's been going on and just kind of some insanity first and foremost with Meet Kevin's ETF, because this really blew up this week, which I think is absolutely insane. It's hilarious. It's a joke. It's a constant reminder of why I am a influencer clown, and all the influencer clowns on the internet, you should not directly follow blindly, because most of them, unlike me, do not show you portfolio performance. But Meet Kevin had the cojones to think that, finally, without showing any, current returns, he's going to publicly display total returns that you can even put your money into. And how did that work out after we criticized it 9 ways to hell because it was supposed to be a pricing power ETF? The guy shorted crypto, went against the market, blew up all of his returns where the S&P basically had a 20% and he went negative. And now he's closing it after a lot of weird stuff that went on in here. If he just held Tesla, which was one of the largest positions initially, oh man, he would have done so well with this ETF. But I just don't understand, how you go from one perspective and getting involved with long-term pricing power stocks to flip-flopping into shorting, to flip-flopping and saying, oh, I've got too much criticism. It hurts. There's too much noise. I pay lawyers too much money. Close the fund. It's like, buddy, it wasn't. Oh my God, I've already given myself hiccups. It wasn't rocket science. There is nothing rocket science about investing. The only time it becomes rocket science is when you think you know what's going on in the short term. It's as simple as that. I have a very basic thesis. Oh my God, I'm going to be dying from hiccups right at the start of this stream. I just went through this horrible ordeal of having really bad hiccups today, and I was over it. And now they're just going to come back. But if you want to play the market, my highest recommendation is always be buying. Doesn't matter what you're buying, just diversify and always be buying. It's really hard to lose over a long period of time. The second you think you know what's going on in the next week, the next month, the next 6 months, the next year, I'm sorry, but you are an effing moron. You're a gambler. You can take yourself to the casino. You can point out any day trading chart, the VWAP. You can talk any philosophical BS you think a line is going to tell you, but it's all BS. Most of it's self-fulfilled prophecies, guys. I don't know too many successful day traders. I have followed day traders my whole life. Most of them do not do it anymore, and most of them do not show total returns anymore. And when you see people that analyze the market every day, like me, Kevin, fail so catastrophically and so publicly, it should be an ever reminder to really understand nobody knows what the hell's going on, and it's all pure fugazi, and it will continue to be fugazi. So let's talk about people that I think, made it. These are the billionaires that you can invest in that will never be Meet Kevin, but people that actually, took things to a wild level and had long-term theses and, really diversify holdings in a very intelligent way. Ray Dalio, a guy that is pronounced as probably more of a value investor, similar to Warren Buffett, is taking stakes in things like Tesla, very small stake nonetheless, but I think he has a very well-rounded portfolio. I think, again, I probably should follow even Ray Dalio's advice, but obviously we all have our own philosophies in the stocks that we buy and why we buy them. But I think if I knew nothing about the market and I had to give my money to a hedge fund manager, I'd give it to Ray Dalio. I mean, I mean, he mostly weights 33% of his portfolio in 3 ETFs that give you mostly US and then broader global based exposure, which I think is great. And then he tends to upperweight stocks that, have great growth, have great margins, like things that I buy, like Google and Meta, 2 largest positions in our portfolios here. Nvidia, Nvidia is a stock in the chip sector I will always regret because I've just never been able to wrap my mind out of it. I flip-flopped on Taiwan Semi, missed out on some great returns that I greatly regret. But again, when I look at this portfolio, with the exception of a few stocks, which we can all have different opinions on, I think this is how you kind of round a portfolio off if you want to be actively managing it. It's why most of our money sits within index funds, because eventually at scale, when you get to hundreds of millions, billions, even millions of dollars, it gets very hard to manage correctly without taking on a lot of risk. But if you have that kind of risk tolerance and you're comfortable holding a handful of stocks, that's great for you, but it isn't great for the public. And it's, it tends to have a risk of gambling to it, right? The lower your holdings are, again, risk tolerance and volatility equals return. But I think you really have to figure out what it is for you that is best. But let's talk about Buffett a little bit before we get into my portfolio here as well. Buffett has actually been outperforming and doing exceptionally well. And I think this is because of the lower market cap. That was kind of my bull thesis to Meta. I'm like, if you can find a company that's trading in the $500 to $1 trillion market cap range that continues to have reasonably good growth, these stocks tend to have much more upside to them. This is the problem with like scale. Like, this is why Microsoft and Apple and a lot of these companies like Google are having a hard time growing. I mean, these companies seem to be peaking at like these 3 to 4 trillion market cap ranges. Like 3 trillion is just nuts, right? And I thought it was crazy when we've hit the first trillion, and I'm like, how easy is it going to be to get to the second trillion, right? And then we blew to 3, but it seems like companies are having a hell of a time, regardless of revenue or income growth, getting past this $3-4 trillion mark. And I mean, I just don't think at the scale of large numbers, these are mature businesses. So to go from like 2 to 3 trillion to 6 and double your money isn't easy at all. Like, I don't think that is a small task. So I think a lot of these companies are mature, and when you're buying them, you have to kind of mitigate your expectations. But a company like Berkshire Hathaway, obviously I think has a greater potential, as does, Meta and some of those companies that are continuing to scale. But Berkshire's done exceptionally well here, I think. But with the exception of what they're buying, I think is really interesting at this point, because they're primarily in cash. And as much as I can respect their returns come from a lot of people buying the stock, right? Like, you buy the stock, you have consistent buyers and holders, and you kind of get that speculative growth. And he's kind of cut back on even, doing share buybacks. This guy is stacking cash to the friggin' moon, over 300 billion. He's making really weird decisions, flip-flopping in stocks on a regular basis. He missed out on the 2020 crash. He missed out on the 2022 crash. The only thing he seems to really buy a lot of is Occidental Petroleum. And even now he's not buying it like a huge degree. Scaled Apple back a lot, scaling Bank of America back, always a net seller of stocks these days. I'm a guy that always believes there's opportunity out there, but I recognize that Buffett, his team, they are people that, like me, have to come to some conclusion they can mentally understand. Like I said, every day there are stocks being thrown at you: Robinhood, Palantir, Tesla, Apple, Nvidia, small caps, growth stocks, Chinese stocks, you name it. But the problem is if you don't understand it, you're just going to blindly be buying things, gambling, and you don't know what the long-term perspective can be on it. But Buffett, I think he needs to not only understand it, but it needs to be able to play a value with a margin of safety. And we see it in this recent buy with Constellation Brands. This is one that I was interested in when they were purchasing Canopy Growth Corp, and I thought it was a mistake. I used to own Constellation for a little while, but if we take a look at the stock just to see how it's been performing, I can kind of get around why he's buying it, but it's not a company that I personally appreciate. And I'll explain why. I mean, I was buying this years ago, and I'm glad that I got rid of it, because it's wiped out like many stocks. It's very hard to know when to buy these, because, I mean, could you imagine holding this from 2016, not getting a single dollar of return really out of it? Maybe some dividends, which is great, because that's the only return that you've been able to get out of it. But that doesn't mean it's not a good buy here, right? Like, all stocks are an accumulation of where you buy. And it's crazy to think over, almost a decade, everyone was buying up here thinking, oh, this is a great company, and then it just tanked. And this is the harsh reality of long-term investing, right? Like, this is the brutality of it. And I'm looking at it and realizing, after Warren Buffett's disclosure came out, this thing pumped up 8%. But trading at a $29 billion market cap isn't unreasonable right now, considering they've maintained growth. I mean, the company's generating $10 billion a year. I mean, trading at 3 times revenue, which is, unusual, but they don't have a huge amount of growth either. And there's been a lot of shift in alcohol use as well. And this is primarily a beer company. They have seen a lot of fluctuations in their net income, and I'm curious too if the stock tanked on, perhaps a lot of production coming out of Mexico, because they're the largest importer of beer to the United States, I believe, and their biggest market is Mexico. The company has been buying shares back, which I like to see, but otherwise, I'm not really sure how great of a trade this is, and time will tell. But honestly, when I think about it, I just don't like alcohol use is going down. I think it's not like it was when I was growing up where people just loved getting shit faced. Nowadays, I think it's almost shameful and you're always scared if you're going to end up on some social media platform. But I feel like people are turning to healthier alternatives these days. But maybe I'm wrong. If you're in college, are you guys still going out and partying and getting absolutely destroyed? I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, Buffett. Otherwise, what else do we got? Domino's Pizza. He really staked up. Domino's, I get, like, these are really simple trades. Like, these are almost like childish trades. Like, I like pizza. Domino's, fairly cheap. Let's buy. I like alcohol, beer and alcohol. How do you go wrong with beer and alcohol, guy? Like, it really seems like these are like an older generation kind of picks. I mean, how did you miss Meta on the 80% tank, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, there were some really good buying opportunities that I feel like Buffett just can't wrap his head around. And there's been speculation that Apple wasn't a decision that Warren Buffett even made. It was probably like Todd and Ted or whatever. But outside of that, I also want to point out, like, Michael Burry's been in a really interesting field right now and doing quite well with his recent trades when it comes to Alibaba, JD.com. And I've talked about this. I only have so much free capital, and I can only do so much with the money I have. And I would love to own BABA here in JD, and I'm thinking about it if the stocks don't continue to absolutely go parabolic. When I get some free room in my RSP after tax season comes around here in the next couple of weeks, I should have probably about, I think I should end up with about 15, maybe 15,000, give or take, of hopefully some contribution room in my RSP, and I might consider buying a little bit of these, but I also think if I want foreign exposure, I don't want to like start going down this road of overbuying stocks, and I might just put it in XEQT or put it in an ETF that gives me global market exposure. I'm not sure just yet, but I get it. BABA has been a stock that many of us have been following for a long time. A lot of people got wrecked on it. A lot of people got scared of China, a lot of manipulation. Nobody really knows what's going on. But bro, buy BABA. Don't be scared. It's a big blessing long term, coming out of a cup after 3 years earnings February 20th. Again, I see huge value in these plays, and I'm shocked that Warren Buffett does not buy them. Because, I mean, I remember Charlie Munger saying his biggest regret was buying Alibaba stock, because I think they owned it for the what is the newspaper that the company that they own, because it's the one that Charlie Munger's the board on and manages and helps invest their money, whatever. Anyways, they did own BABA, and I remember Charlie Munger saying it was their biggest regret, but it's up 46% this year. And I mean, it was cheap back here. Like, when the growth that it was having and it was cheap back here, I mean, again, this is another one of those companies where, like, it is really hard being a long-term investor, knowing you could have bought this at IPO and it's only just trading above its IPO price right now. And it is arguably bigger than Amazon. Like, this company makes Amazon look like small fry. Again, I think the problem with capitalism is you get caught up in the money itself, and you forget, like, the scale of business and operation. But Alibaba is probably one of the largest operating businesses on the planet. It does 4x the shipment volume of Amazon, and 60% of items sold on Amazon come from China. And it's likely a huge percentage of those are just coming from Alibaba, as e-commerce users go on, Amazon, and they go and buy products that are popular from China, send it to an Amazon warehouse, then they sell it and at like a friggin' 200, 300% premium. It's just how the world seems to work right now, because a lot of Westerners don't have the mindset that they want to buy Chinese products, even though everything we own is a Chinese product. It's such a really weird way, the whole Amazon system is set up, but it benefits the whole ecosystem, right? Because a lot of people market those products, whether it be through TikTok or Facebook or Google marketing and all that stuff, right? And I'll get to your guys' comments in a second. I do want to just point out my portfolio first. We'll read some of your comments, and I want to talk about, like, I'm getting giddy about a trade many of you are well aware of. We'll talk about it in a moment, but there's been a lot going on. And again, I see some opportunity out there. And I look at my portfolio, and, it's not nearly the same. And I don't think anyone ever has the same portfolio type, which is why investing is so unique and it's so personalized and it's so interesting. And the whole reason I do this is hopefully you can take some ideas or get some inspiration from what I'm doing and kind of bring it into your own risk tolerance, your own time horizon, your own income level, and get a really good understanding of what's good for you to buy, because what's good for me might not be good for you. But I sit here, and again, I'm a guy that's looking at a portfolio for preservation with selected growth. And I rarely, especially in the last couple of years, like, for me I haven't felt excited about a lot of things. It's why I've been mostly sitting in ETFs. I can't really buy any more Google. I can't really buy any more Meta with the exposure, the fiance has. I just like, we have so much exposure to the things we like that, like, like Warren Buffett, there just hasn't been anything new outside of ETF investing, with the exception of, like, again, I have a few stocks. Like Aduro is exciting to me. There's a couple of these companies that are exciting, but there's just like, it's far and few in between. Like, I look at, my job is literally to look at stocks. I literally, in outside of this YouTube channel, I work with 60 small cap companies. All I do is look at stocks all day, every day. And I look at them and I recognize that there are really great trades. I looked at Hood and I'm like, Hood's probably going to do well. It pops off. Palantir is one of these companies where I kind of get the gist, and I'm sure I get it just as much as anyone else, but it's one of those things where I don't understand software. It's why I've never bought in Constellation software. It's like, there's so many software companies out there, and software is ever evolving, and I just can never grasp buying Adobe. I could never grasp buying a lot of these companies, right? But with Google, it's so simple. Like, the best money I've ever made in the market came from the most simple ideas. Google to me is YouTube. Google to me is a media conglomerate that literally controls the most valuable thing on the planet, which is attention. Attention is more valuable than anything. The medium of attention is that's why everybody wants to own, like, these social media apps, because they're becoming the largest companies on the planet. And I argue Google should be the largest company on the planet. They got some risk with their search, but that search is the median of attention, and it's not going anywhere. Their AI is powerful. Like, they're a huge player that aren't going anywhere. It's such an easy play. Same with Meta. Meta is easy to me. I play with VR. My headset's right there. I get it. Like, it's such a redundant, simple thing for me to understand. Almost half the world, over 1/3 of the world, uses one of Meta's apps. And I use almost all Meta's apps. We use Instagram, Facebook. I'm using all that stuff. I get it. It's simple. I see the revenue growth. The numbers make sense. It seemed very cheap from a value standpoint for me, unlike Palantir. And I get that it is some form of software, but it's a source, again, of attention, right? Where people portray themselves, they use it for business. It's an integration into society from every level, from whether you're a kid dancing in school, like on TikTok, or you're trying to run $100 billion business, or $1 trillion business like Tesla, right? Like, you're going to be on social media. Tesla does all their investor events through YouTube. I mean, you kind of get the sense of these businesses. I get the core of it. It sits in my heart in a very comfortable place. So I don't mind owning it. We've made great money. I've done that with Apple. I did a lot of this in some other small caps that really exploded over the years that we made some money on. I get it. Like, those are the things that just make sense to me. It's not going to make sense to everybody, because I get criticism about the stocks I buy all the time, right? So I want to read a few of your comments. We'll go through some of them real quick, and then we'll talk about the trades that I'm going to be making in a substantial way. And I'm even going to be selling some of my S&P 500 gains to make these trades, which is probably the ballsiest thing I've done in a while. But I just can't get over and how giddy I am about some of these things. I haven't felt this giddy about stocks in a while, if I'm being frank, with the exception of a couple of the holdings I have. But it's when you find a new trade that's exciting, it's just, you kind of get all warm and fuzzy inside, and you want to keep buying it, similar to like some of these small caps that I own here. But Kyle, what's your options play on Aduro? I do not have options, and I do not play options, but don't get me wrong, I have looked at how to leverage it. Which feels dirty inside for me, because it's rarity that I look to leverage positions. We'll talk about take two, because obviously that's the position that I'm going to be scaling like there's no tomorrow. I put a delayed drinking with the boys to be here. Tell me where to put the money. That's hilarious. So you're supporting Constellation, are you? I will say the best beer. I'm not a big drinker at all. I might have a whiskey once in a while with my buddy when I go to see him, maybe once every other week. However, I really do enjoy, and I went out of my way, and I had to look really hard to find Modelo, or the Modelos. I love Modelos. I think these are one of the best beers, and Constellation owns them. But again, I'm not a big drinker. Kyle, thoughts on MDA space? Take a look. If you haven't, I will. I haven't, but we'll take a look in a bit. Tesla will go bankrupt. Not if people keep buying the stock. Like I said, if you want to value me at $1 trillion, baby, I'll go out and I'll make you the best damn robot. They will be the best. Dare I say, the best anyone's ever seen. I'll build you the best robots. And here come the hiccups again. Level here, Mad No Way. Who's going to buy their stuff? Doing Terra4, nobody. Meet Kevin is still a millionaire. Yeah, but that's not like a facet of what. Like, here's the problem. This is the problem that I noticed, like, who is it? Strongman Personal Finance pointed out that if you have money, you naturally get respect, regardless of how you made the money. It's not a healthy thing. And I think, again, I don't think Meet Kevin's a bad guy. I just think you have to recognize that he is a grifter. He is a financial clown. That's what I am, and I recognize it, and I'm the only one that seems to admit it at all. Like, we all just get on, like, again, step back with me a little bit here, folks. I need to pull out the magic. Actually, I'm showing my tattoo. I even have a King of Clubs tattoo on my arm here. I was a full-time magician for a decade. I understood the value of attention, all right? And when you come on YouTube, when you go on CNBC, when you go on Fox, when you listen to the rhetoric of the politics that goes on today, you have to keep in mind it is being fed to you from a place of clownery. It is being fed to you in a way that will grab your attention and engage you. That is why politics today have been more divisive than they have ever been, because the way it is going to be portrayed is the way that is going to get you angry. It is the way that is going to get you involved. It's the way. Have you read the comments? Like, go look at comments on videos today. It blows my mind because, like, they're all bots. What people are doing right now is they are literally making bots. They're using bots. There are literal companies out there that are doing this for big companies today to cause engagement in your videos. So if you go through some of the top comments, you'll notice that they're usually adverse opinions that try and get you riled up. And if you click on those accounts, most of those accounts don't even really exist. They don't have any history to them. They're usually new accounts. And it's just funny, right? Because we're all being played. And, you know, Meet Kevin to me is like the king of this. He's playing all of you guys, and you're his experiment, right? Like, he's making millions off YouTube. All of his money comes from YouTube and courses. He's proven to you he doesn't know how to trade stocks time and time again. He got lucky with Tesla, and that was it. You know, we all get lucky once in a while, but if you guys can't see past the luck and the clownery, and you're going to go invest in his businesses with the track record this guy has had in the past, you are absolutely insane. Like I said, I will gladly show you my percentage gains against anyone else. And I have a deep deal of respect for anybody that shows total return. And there's hardly anybody that does it. I mean, Jeremy does it on his, I know he does it on his public accounts. I don't know what his personal accounts look like, but I can only respect somebody if they show me all their accounts and what it's looked like for a decade. If you do not have a decade of performance under your belt, you don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry. I waited so long to get to a decade. Like, because I knew, like, unless I can't look back. Have you ever looked at a company and said, oh, this company has 3 years of history? That's enough. No, most people won't even buy a stock that has 5 years of history, right? Like, most people I need 100 years of dividend payouts, and I need to know this and that. It's like, yeah, but here's a guy that's been on YouTube that only just recently started talking about stocks, right? So I'm going too heated here, but I really hate when people are like, he's a millionaire, though. It's because you watch him. That's why he's a millionaire. Not because he's good at stock investing, not because he's good at real estate, not because he's good at anything else. It's just because you guys watch him. And I watch him too, right? And you guys watch me. It's just recognize the transparency and the veil that gets pulled behind your eyes. Thoughts on HYLD? Kyle, I'm currently dripping 1 share per month and using the drip calculator. Yeah. I'm not a fan of most option ETFs. I'd prefer you write your own options. But if you like the passive income, I know they're very popular these days. Make them a mitigated part of your portfolio. But if you don't need the income today, I wouldn't focus on them. Total return investor. If you want to retire in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe it's a good time to focus on building out some dividend income. But still, even in my parents' retirement, try and remind them it's not all about dividends. Total returns do matter. Especially in markets like this, when you see growth start to take off again. If you do not have that growth exposure, it definitely sucks. Kyle, what are your thoughts on, sorry, I just clicked on that. Let's go through a few other here. Level, Tardif Wars, business energy, AI tech will need it. Where will it come from? Yeah, one of you pointed out, and I want to answer this. Is it not at the top here? Yeah, this guy's saying, nobody listened to me when TD was at 74. Nobody cared when I was all TELUS 1989. You know, TELUS is still skeptical here, but I think it's at a bottom. I'll agree with you on that. Maybe TD. They're both cheap stocks. I do like those. There's good Canadian stocks that I think are relatively cheap. And you've been pointing out in the energy sector, Cameco, and you're thinking that it'll explode. Now, I love the energy plays, and I've been following them a lot. But I try and avoid investing in commodities because they're highly, highly volatile. When it comes to commodity plays, like I just can't wrap my head around how the entire commodity of uranium works. Cameco, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great company, and I think uranium is going to have a lot of value. But when you look at it, like, uranium's finally started to correct. And I work with people in the uranium space really closely, and I've had them try to explain to me, like, why uranium goes up so much. And he tried to explain to me that, you know, because I said, like, there's so many uranium reserves. It's not like there's some shortage of uranium out there, and it's not like we can't just go out and mine it tomorrow. Same thing with gold, right? Like, gold is probably one of the most manipulated assets, and I don't understand why people are so fixated on it, because there's like an infinite amount of gold, and any country can just be like, we're going to subsidize mining. We're going to, you know, incentivize all of this, cut taxes on it, mine the shit out of gold. You could probably tank the price of gold. Like, it's not like these things are, in short supply. Like, there are thousands of metric tons of uranium just sitting in reserve. So some guy was explaining to me, it's just how these companies buy it in bulk and what led to the price explosion. But it's one of those things that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And I know Cameco is a big, trader of uranium. So it's just, if you understand it, trade it, own it, do whatever you like with it. I always recommend being very, very careful with commodities, because like oil, like a lot of these, they go through very cyclical cycles. And even though there's a huge demand for this stuff, it doesn't mean the supply is not available or can't be readily available. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, you might be right. They might be the three best trades of the year for all we know. It could be TD, TELUS, and Cameco there, but time will tell. We'll answer a few more of these, and I want to get back into the conversation. Alphabet is my next big stock pick. Yeah, it's literally the two largest positions in our portfolio, makes up over 10% today. Not buying anymore. My excitement for it is kind of dwindling off because I filled the position, and now we just sit on it for 5 or 10 years and see where we end up. Dropped all week. If you can stomach volatility and ride it out, need uranium is going to skyrocket. Yeah, we shall see. Like I said, if you understand it, great. I do not understand it at all. Tell us the trade chat this week. All right, we'll talk about some of these stocks, and then we'll get back into comments here in a moment. So what I want to do, and I'm going to read into some of your comments because a lot of people were giving me some criticism. They were obviously talking about it, but Take-Two Interactive is what I'm going to be just loading up on. I'm even going to take some gains out of the S&P. I'll probably sell about 10K off because I really just want to get the position filled to where I'm not going to regret not owning it. And then from there, I might even scale it into the largest position in our portfolios. I don't know just yet. I'm just over the moon because the more I dig into, like, okay, the trade for me doesn't care about fundamentals. The fundamentals I'm looking at are people paying attention to this, and are they aware of how big this is probably going to be? And every time I've dug through every forum over the weekend, over the last week or two, ever since I listened to the earnings call of what the CEO was saying, I can see why the stock's rallying based on everything, but it's not rallying to the extent that I think it's going to when people wake up to the meteoric insanity of what GTA 6 is. I know I'm going to start sounding like a nerd here, but we'll read some of your comments. So some of you have been pointing out, I've been recommending this since last April, much more upside to come. The next catalyst up will be when they give the release date, which most likely will include another trailer. I'm guessing a couple months or so when that's released. After that, other commercials and op-up, and you see will be GTA 6. They'll grab attention of the egg hoarders. Average price in the 152 is nice job, man. You got it at a pretty decent price. I was going to say, try not to buy at all-time highs. Yeah, this is the hard part right now for me, is that, like, it's even like Meta passed all-time highs and just keeps going up. This is one of those stocks where I know for a fact there's only one of two things that are going to happen in the midterm here until this game comes out. And it's either going to be, we're going to end up in some black swan event because the markets are incredibly overvalued and AI is going to take a massive hit and it's going to bring the market down with it, or we're going to be able to ride at higher valuations. The market isn't going to go through some catastrophe and we're going to be fine. And if we are fine, I can't see any major downturn for Take-Two because their earnings, I think, are going to continue to improve on the fact that GTA isn't the thing driving the stock in totality right now. Everything they have coming out is hyper popular and they're seeing continued revenue growth. They don't have earnings. Keep that in mind. This is a company that doesn't operate off basic fundamentals right now, but you can trade it off revenue and it's still trading relatively cheap, in my opinion, for everything in totality, not just GTA, what the company's doing. Very crazy information, time traveling information. I agree. I think we're going to wake up and this game's going to drop. And because people are so starved for a good game, I don't know if you guys are in like the whole slew of the gaming industry, but I do follow a lot of gamers like Dr. Disrespect still, even with the controversy and all that stuff. And these guys, everybody I follow seems to be starving for a good game. Like there just hasn't been a decent game just because of cheaters. There's so many hackers going on in games. Even like I play so much VR and there's so many hackers in VR games. Just people that exploit things all the time, right? And I think people are just exhausted of kind of the same turnover of games at this point. So I'm hyper aware, and I think that this is again going to be the most meteoric piece of entertainment ever sold. I think it's going to. I am speculating the first week could do 100 million sales, but I'm going to say that this thing could easily do 150 to 200 million. And that's going to equate somewhere between 10 and $20 billion probably in the first month of release, which is probably going to be half their current market cap in revenue. And when people wake up to that reality, and then all of a sudden, every frigging investor out there is like, oh my God, this company's revenue is going to be insane. The company's earnings are going to explode. And I think from the time the game releases to that high, if I could be wrong, again, I could be horribly wrong. I just don't think I am. So, like I said, I just don't think people are just paying attention to it right now. And that's why I'm so excited, because even though the stock's up a lot, no one's talking about this at all. Like, it's kind of shocking to me. I wouldn't put too much into it. It's most likely the game will be underwhelming, even with better graphics, as with any part two. So I think what Grand Theft Auto has done better than any other game is storytelling. And I think that's because they've taken so many like incredibly popular ideas and have integrated them into a game that have some sense of, I mean, like, look at Vice City was very based on like Scarface, which was an insanely, popular movie. Even like, I remember when GTA 5 came out and I bought it, played it with my buddy, and it was just the moments and the thought that was put into the storyline was super, super awesome, right? And I feel like a lot of people probably are not too much into this stuff, but a lot of the questions always come around. I'll read the latter half of this and then just kind of go back to Q&As here. But in my humble opinion, GTA is the only AAA franchise that's worth a closer look, and it's the only AAA that could really make a difference. Even though I played GTA something only a couple of hours myself, nevertheless, I'm a strong believer in human greed and stupidity overall. Not a bad combination for speculation on tremendous short-term success. Only the all-time high, brother, bothers me a bit. Mentally, I prefer being early, even though momentum is a valid strategy, and that's the strategy we're going to be playing on, is momentum. Again, I feel late, but I think the stock's not rallying necessarily as much on GTA 6 as it's just the market is excited overall. Everything's rallying if it's growth related, and the company has a lot going on. If you listen to earnings, they're very excited. So we'll see what happens. Moving on, though, we'll get into a few comments here, and then I want to talk about some of this other stuff that's super interesting. If we get into this trade war, which has started already, do you think Trump could up the holding on our investments in the U.S. markets? And when he said this, I found something really intriguing too, right? Because I don't know how solid these treaties are we have. Because like I said, one of the most intriguing things is we have investment accounts that waive U.S. withholding tax. And it blows my mind as a Canadian that we can go over to the U.S., buy U.S. stocks like Take-Two or whatever that doesn't pay a dividend, but any stock that pays a dividend, and not pay any withholding tax and make it tax-free until we withdraw it. And then it's just calculated at your basic income bracket. This really interests me as well. I don't know how concrete these treaties are, but I hope they don't get rid of them. I haven't dug deep enough into the treaty itself to know what it's about, but it's just one of those things that Canadians just don't seem to understand very well. Something I don't understand very well, and I'd love to know what you guys think about it. But outside of that, let's get into some of your comments, questions, out of just pure curiosity here, because I feel like I bore you guys with my current trades on Take-Two, and I don't want you guys to go too crazy. It's not being a good game. The small chance GTA 6 could have a currency in the game creates, sorry, let me read this if I'm reading this correctly. The small chance GTA 6 could have a currency in game creates a whole new world, a world within a world, and a Caesar's wept. For there where there are no more worlds left to conquer. Maybe. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Do you think it's a good time to look into gold? Nope, I hate gold. If you like it, great. That's all you. I own some gold. I don't care for it. It's an unproductive asset like cryptocurrency. I think it's all fugazi. I think it's all highly manipulated. I don't like any of it for the most part, but if you like it, get some. I know a lot of people like it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not my personal interest. I prefer miners or cash flowers. But like I said, you get a shiny rock. I have some back here in my my nice little cabinet here. And I get to look at it and I get to rub it, but it's not going to put food on my table unless I sell it. And I'd usually, it's just one of those things, right, where you really want to just start loading up on bricks of golds. If it's a you thing, great. I went down that path. Go look at the first YouTube video I ever posted on this channel. You'll be surprised. Without going too deep into it, do you think Aduro has a good strategy for commercialization? Yes, I think Aduro's done all the heavy lifting they can right now. When it comes to Aduro Clean Technologies, for those of you that are unaware, hydrochemolytic upcycling, taking waste polymers, plastics, and reconverting it back into oil. It is something that sounds simple, but has actually never existed up to the last decade, and now is only just commercializing with a handful of companies that are on the forefront of this technology that I think is truly revolutionary because it can be used for more than just plastic. But Aduro seems to be the only company that has the absolute premier technology, as far as I can tell. that has the most, verticals behind it. And a lot of the companies right now are getting very large investments. I'm going to do a video on it. If you've done the research, we are now getting institutional buyers at a rather large level, especially into Pure Cycle. Big investor just bought a lot of Pure Cycle, which is one of their competitors. But what I'm really intrigued by is they have these 10 clients, and I think we just need one of them, right? Like just one of them to be like, this technology is going to work for us and we're going to start buying it. And I think the stock will immediately run up to $1 billion in valuation. It's going to take time for us to get there, but it's just one of those companies that I just don't think a lot of people care about, a lot of people pay attention to. They sponsor my channel. I'm just going to put that out there, but I have worked with hundreds, if not at this point, 1,000 plus sponsors on this channel. This is one of the only ones that I have ever bought into. And I've worked so closely with people that have went and looked at the actual technology. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but when I listen and I've talked to people that work so tightly with the company and they're so professional and the way they operate, the whole thing just, again, it's like take two. It's like there's just a few companies that I get that giddy feeling where I'm like, there's some potential here. Keep in mind, it's small cap. You have to take on your own risk. Again, small cap companies, man, super risk, super volatile. Not for everybody. I get that, but it's just my opinion on it. Do you know how much plastic I eat and convert to methane? I'm way ahead of the game. You see that video where they took the dead people and they pulled out like an entire plastic spoon's worth of plastic out of our brains because there's just microplastic in everything today. What are your thoughts on robots? Google with the big investment last week. Yeah, I mean, robots are probably going to be the biggest trade. The problem is I can't get behind the value yet. I get that there's like, I hate when there's no business model, right? Like Enduro has a business model. It is a very clean and easy to understand business model. When it comes to robotics, guess what? We have robotics for everything already. You don't need the robot standing there and moving one thing and being like, oh, it's so impressive. A robotic arm does it already cheaper, right? I think it's better for like dangerous things like mining. I can see where robotics are useful, right? But they're so integrated already into so much of our lives that I think when people are like humanoid robots, $1 trillion, multi-100 trillion, okay, how? Where are they going to be usable? You and me are not going to go out and buy a $20,000 robot to do our fucking laundry, okay? That's not us. I'm just saying. I get it at a commercial scale level for uranium mining, and even then, like you got to construct friggin' machinery to even withstand that kind of infrastructure. We already have robotics for uranium mining. Like there's so many dangerous things that are already roboticized that a humanoid robot's probably not going to be the most efficient thing for. So I need like an actual reliable use case. You do not need a humanoid robot working at McDonald's. You just don't. You can automate McDonald's through machine armory, like arms. You don't need a thing that walks around and needs to be charged or plugged in and dollied. Like, again, it's Elon's pump and dump. That's what it is. I've heard so much shit about it, but I don't get it. I'm like, I get there's value to it and I can see use cases for it everywhere. But I don't know. The only place where I see it being like hyper vigilantly valued is over in other countries. And if it can become cheaper than labor, I think that's where the world really changes, right? Like when it becomes cheaper than labor for physical labor, we're in a real problem in society. And I'll give you an example here that will, if you don't travel, comes back to the point of living in a bubble. You need to get out of the Western world. And when you see how other economies operate based on certain things because of the capitalism doesn't like just the way their society functions. Brazil is one of my favorite examples. Go look at farming in Brazil. So when I was in Brazil, seeing my family, we were at a potato field, right? And here is a tractor, a modern piece of machinery with a conveyor picking the potatoes up out of the field. The conveyor takes the potato up, it cleans the dirt off, and it falls on the ground. And there are all these people in the field going around picking potatoes up and putting them in baskets. And me being the little shit that I was, I looked at my cousin who owned this massive farming industry, and I was like, why don't you just put a bucket on the back of the conveyor? Why do you have all these people just picking potatoes up off the ground when you're already pulling them out of the ground? And he said to me, it's simple. Our government forces us to employ people because if they don't, they will take all your money. We need employment. The country needs to employ people. Like Brazil doesn't function like the US or Canada does. So it's interesting to see people getting very mundane jobs out of forced employment. And in Brazil, by law, if you're employing people, you have to supply them with housing and with, I think, food as well. I don't quote me on that. I was in Brazil like 10 years ago, but I'm just saying, like, everything I saw there just warped my mind, because I'm like, that's what's going to eventually happen here. We're living in a world right now where we're just accepting the fact as people that you can't go out and get a job and afford to live. You need to get 2 or 3 jobs, and even then you're struggling, right? If that problem persists the way it is persisting because we only care about bottom line earnings, this is again the problem with China, right? Everyone hates China, but China actually cares about their people beyond money. Whereas the Western world only cares about money. That's it. At your detriment, and it's going to be a problem. It's going to become a problem in the next 50 or 100 years that is going to require reform. Other countries have been down this path already. Capitalism has been great and it's been working very well. But if you haven't been like buying real estate 10 years ago, like think of it, like look at the cost of real estate. Go get a job at McDonald's and afford a piece of real estate in your lifetime, or even afford rent. It's like insane to imagine, right? Like people are starting to struggle. And the divide between the rich and the poor is getting ever greater. And that could lead to a civil war at some point. I mean, we just accept it, but eventually people will not accept it. And when you start getting robots replacing jobs, again, I don't understand the business model yet. I need to see who's buying it, why they're buying it, where it's being used, because it's not me or you that are going to buy it to do our laundry. It just, most people will not be able to afford it. I'm like, I get having help around the house and maybe at some like construction jobs, but even construction jobs are going to become automated. They're already building like apartment complexes, like a modular piece at a time in an automated factory. You don't need a humanoid robot for that. So again, like, show me the business model and I will believe it's worth trillions and trillions of dollars, but I need to see the business model and I need to see it implemented. Aduro is implementing their business model. Take like all these companies, like I can see the business model. I don't get robotics other than it is pure hype, and it'll be worth money. It will be, but is it going to be worth trillions and trillions of dollars? Something tells me it won't, because again, Elon has promised the moon and back, and we haven't got the moon and back. We've gotten some cool shit, but we haven't got trillions upon trillions of dollars of cool shit. Not yet anyways. So calm down. I'm telling myself to calm down. I get too worked up. Anyways, where were we, folks? Appreciate the insights of my insanity. I know. I am a TELUS bag holder. What is your target price, do you think? I don't really have a target price on it because I don't want to sell it. It's like Warren Buffett buying Constellation. It's just like, I just want to diversify some Canadian holdings beyond VDY, but I don't really want to go buy XEI or XDIV. I really just want to pick a few Canadian stocks I love, increase the yield of my Canadian holders a little bit, sit back, ride it for the rest of my life. That's kind of the goal. But we'll see. As many of you know, I do tend to flip-flop once in a while. Long term, like 5 or 10 years, I don't think they're going anywhere. Yeah, for sure. I don't think. Tell us, they're going to be fine. Yeah, as long as the dividend can hang in there without a cut. I don't think they're going to cut it. These companies seem pretty nefarious with dilution and taking advantage of things to avoid cutting the dividend, because they know most people that hold the companies are for the dividends. Do your due diligence, pal. But that's a $26-30 within 2 years, and they won't cut the dividend. Everyone drop a like right now. Support the info coming out here. Appreciate it as always. I gotta be really careful when I'm doing this salute, right? I'm a bag holder on Canadian telecoms. Yeah, a lot of people are. It's one of those things. I mean, I don't think I've ever made money on Canadian telecom. I've owned it. Like my parents own it in their retirement. They're down on it. My wife was holding it. We ended up selling it because I don't want to be in a perpetual downturn. Especially when I know it's better to be in an ETF. But now that it's down so much, we'll buy it back, because I still like the company. I still like telecom. I don't think they're monopolies in Canada. They have, a bunch of friggin' laws that prevent any real competition. They're forcing some open competition, but TELUS is kind of maneuvering it. Good luck with this week with your maniacs. You maniacs. BC taking a beating. Yeah, I know. Take care. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And I'm still playing the juicy dividend. Yeah. Otherwise, folks, there's a whole lot going on out in the market. And I'd love to know what you guys are buying, trading. I mean, we all kind of have our own way of navigating this insane market, but I prefer to see everybody doing well. China takes care of their people. Again, when I say take care of their people, I mean, they're the kind of people that step in on a lot of social issues. Like I said, I get it. From the Western perspective, we're fed so much propaganda that everywhere else is just a horrible place to live. And we look at like specific things in government. But again, if you step outside of even look at the US from the outside in, and it has a lot of issues. Again, look at US, again, I don't want to say culture because everyone gets upset, but like most places in the world, when people look at like the gun violence in the United States and the fact that kids are more likely to die from a shooting at a school than they are in a car accident or drug overdose or anything else, it's staggering to most people everywhere else in the world. And they might like be like, why do you want to live in a place like that? You know, why do you want to live in a place where fast food has been the staple of diets, where 40% of people are overweight? In Japan, they actually teach their kids to eat healthy in school. In China, they like, I don't know. Like I said, they're culturally, I like seeing the good in everything. I like seeing the good in the US and Canada. I know there's bad in China, but there's also good in China. It's like, so, take it with a grain of salt. But I think same with Afghanistan. There's a lot of great people. There's a lot of great people all over the world. There's a lot of great culture all over the world. There's a lot of problems all over the world as well. It's just, it is what it is. So, take it with a grain of salt. You think the banks are going to get wrecked by mortgage renewals? No, I think the banks are going to be fine. I will say, and I'll finish up on one topic here. When it comes to real estate, because a lot of people right now are hounding the Canadian real estate market is going to collapse because there's a lot of condos on the market. Condos aren't really moving. The volume of total real estate sales aren't moving at all. And the funny thing is the people that are selling real estate right now, they don't care. And the people buying, it's a buyer's market for sure, but the people selling, they don't care. There a lot of people that have their real estate on the market, they don't seem to be in a rush, and they aren't really going to take a lot less. The prices have actually only gone up. That's the perplexing reality right now, because again, in this world of clickbait and fantasy of, oh, I need your attention and the bullshit to make money. If you actually read between the lines of all these articles that are saying our real estate's going to crash, the only people that are losing in this actual market environment right now are real estate traders, people that require liquidity and buying and selling to actualize revenue. But otherwise, I mean, the people are doing pretty good in real estate for the most part. And again, it's just the people that need to sell. If you need to exit, you're not in a good market. But I think most people are just holding and they're not in a rush to get rid of it. Or we would see tanking prices because people aren't accepting lower prices and prices are only going up. So again, when you see like the clickbait and you look at the numbers and you're confused, it's like, okay, well, one thing can't go with the other. Real estate can't be crashing and prices going to all-time highs. Even though rents are correcting a little bit as well, which is interesting. What's your day job? I don't want to get too much into what my day job is, but it's mostly just stock market stuff. I help a bunch of companies with news flow and other things and marketing. I'm a marketer. That's what I am. I just market things. I just help people get the story. I had a good experience with TELUS in the past. Rogers, however, they do sketchy things. Rogers is the worst. They went down a bunch of times. We try and mix up what we use for telecom usage. We have Rogers internet, but we make sure our cell phones are on different providers, because when Rogers went down, it was really nice having a different provider because I can just hotspot from my phone. It's good to diversify your telecom use. The dip after the dip. If the USA government cuts spending, we will be heading into a recession. If Trump does half of what he wants to do, we're screwed anyway. I don't understand economics anymore, and I try not to. I want to go back to, this is why I like Take Two Interactive so much, and I like simple theses on stocks. I like things that I love that I can get excited about, because I can't get excited about politics. I just can't even talk about it anymore. It's hard, and we're so forced to see it, and it just sucks. Everything about it sucks. It's not fun anymore. It was never fun. Let's be real. Anyways, buying chronic dips on right now. BNS. Yeah, BNS is pretty good. It's dropped a little bit. I think Enbridge will keep rising. I'm going to do a video on Enbridge. Enbridge tanked pretty hard there after earnings. I think it's a good buying opportunity. You just got to keep in mind the growth of those companies are kind of stagnating a little bit. But if you're looking for income, man, they've done very well in the last year. But I'll talk about it more when I do a video on it. Otherwise, folks, lots to talk about. A lot of you have been in and out, from 100 viewers, 136. You guys are crazy on a Sunday night. Hopefully you're somewhere warm and you're not stuck in Snowmageddon here like we are. But I love condo life because I'm not the one shoveling the snow or dealing with any of it. So it feels great. Anyways, so from this, I'm taking go long on Take Two Robotics and gold sucks. Cameco should be on the watch list. Be wealthy, everyone. Look. Don't do what I'm doing. I just like talking about things that I personally love and things that I don't like. You could like gold. You could like Cameco. I like seeing you guys be successful in what you love. Find something you love. Become successful at it. I hope I'm successful with my take two trade. It's not a long-term trade. It is going to be a 1-year hold at most. If it works out, we're going to run to the bank because I'm going to be putting like a shit ton of money into it. And it's going to be one of the funnest trades, I think, of the year. And if I make a shit ton of money, I already told the wife, I will use those gains. I'm going to go buy a PlayStation or an Xbox, and I'm going to be playing the game. And I'm going to do my best not to look at anyone else playing the game because I will want to enjoy it after I made my small fortune off of it. And if I don't make a small fortune off of it, I will not be buying the game. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I don't know if there's a 50% gain. I'm speculating that it is going to be an easy double. I think I'm going to double my money. At least, if not triple. I think it'll run up to 50, 100 trillion, or 100 billion, trillion, I wish. 50 to 100 bill market cap from here was my guess. I could be wrong. Don't do what I'm doing. Stay cool, stay awesome, folks. Peace.